Right before the wedding day, her father suddenly refused to walk her down the aisle. The reason behind it wasn't just a refusal, it was a slap in the face to her entire childhood. What could make a father turn his back at the most important moment of his daughter's life? Follow this story full of twists, buried pain, and untold truths with us. Clara Lombardi always knew she wasn't raised to be the wife of a good man in God. She was the kind of girl who'd rather hold a sketch pencil than sing in the choir, who'd rather climb scaffolding than show up at church every Sunday morning. That never fit in with the Lombardi household, a place where every wall was covered with images of Christ, and every pre-meal prayer was spoken out loud like a mandatory ritual. Her family was picture perfect in the eyes of the neighbors. Her father, Pastor Anthony Lombardi, a prominent figure in the Italian Catholic community in New Jersey. Her mother, a gentle woman who always walked one step behind her husband like a polite shadow. And Bella, Clara's older sister, the one the whole community praised with names like the Hymn Angel and the Radiant Smile. Clara alone never had a title. To most people, she was simply Bella's little sister. Clara, now 30, is a well-known interior architect. She lives in Hoboken, has her own apartment, and makes enough money to never have to ask anyone for help. Her fiancé, Evan, is also an architect, a longtime colleague before they started dating after a long project in Vermont. He's the quiet type, a good listener, the kind of man who never asks, "So tell me about your family," unless she brings it up first. And Clara almost never wants to. Since she was little, Clara had sensed the distance in the way her father treated her. Anthony always wore a stern face when he spoke to her, his tone flat, like he was delivering a sermon. With Bella, though, he softened. He called Bella God's miracle to the Lombardi family, a child born on Christmas Eve 1990, right as the church bells rang and the first snowflake touched the steeple. Every year, Bella had a birthday celebration called the Angel's Party, a 3-tier white cake, a choir singing in her honor, guests dressed in formal code. Clara's birthday, on the other hand, was usually lumped in with some church event, store-bought cake over in a flash before the church bells signaled Mass. One year, Clara asked her father why she didn't get her own party. He simply said, "You need to learn gratitude instead of asking for things." Clara was never good at hiding her emotions. She drew. That was her only way to let things out. But even that got her in trouble once, right in the middle of communion. When her father caught her sketching a portrait of her mother kneeling in prayer, he pulled her behind the pulpit, his voice low and sharp. "You have no reverence. You don't understand the sacred. God doesn't need your scribbles." Even as a little girl, Clara felt a sting in her chest, not from being scolded, but because Bella stood there, smiling faintly, and didn't say a word for her. That memory stayed with Clara all through high school. She didn't join the choir. She didn't go to hymn camp. She didn't volunteer to host the Lent festivals. Instead, she applied to a design school in Chicago, got a scholarship, and left New Jersey the moment she graduated. No send-off. No hug from her father. Every time Clara came home, Thanksgiving, Christmas, she always felt like the off-key note in the family portrait. Bella hosted church events, her mother sat quietly beside her father, and Clara just nodded politely at parishioners asking, "So what is it you do again, dear?" Clara never shared much about her personal life. But this time was different. When Evan proposed during an exhibit in Brooklyn, something shifted in her chest, like she was finally ready to build a family of her own, on her own terms. No one's permission needed. She called home on Friday morning. Her mother answered, her voice soft as always. Clara said she was getting married in the fall, a small ceremony at an old church in Morristown. She invited her parents, not expecting much, just being polite. Her mother went quiet for a few seconds, then said, "Your father will call you back." Clara didn't think much of it until the phone rang 2 hours later. It was Anthony, her father. No pleasantries. He got straight to the point. "I'll be there, and if you want, I can walk you down the aisle." Clara stood frozen by the window of her apartment, still holding the phone. She didn't know if it was emotion, suspicion, or both. She stammered, "Are you serious?" And he said, "You're my daughter. Of course I should do that." That sentence, simple as it was, caught in Clara's throat. Not because she believed it right away, but because, in 30 years, it was the first time he had called her my daughter and actually meant it. Not a sinner in need of correction, not a rebellious child, just his daughter. That day, Clara didn't tell anyone, not her mother, not Bella, not even Evan. She just opened the design sketch of her wedding dress and added one new detail: a longer veil to cover her narrow shoulders. For the first time in her life, she believed she could be a bride. Not just a woman in a white dress, but someone who's truly seen. She just didn't know yet. Some people only give you hope, just so they can take it back the moment you start to believe. Clara couldn't sleep that night. After her father's brief call, she lay still in bed, eyes wide open in the dark, staring at the ceiling like she was searching for answers in the cracks of the old paint. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't cry. She just stayed quiet, afraid that if she said anything out loud, the fragile dream that had just started to form would shatter into pieces. The next day, Clara began planning the wedding with a different mindset. No one in her family knew, but deep down, she was rebuilding everything as if a small child inside her was whispering, "Maybe this time, he'll really show up." She chose an old stone church in Morristown, not too big, but with arched ceilings, green stained glass windows, and bells that sounded like they echoed from a century ago. Evan let her handle every detail, even the music, a 4-piece classical string ensemble from New Haven. Clara wanted the ceremony to be peaceful, not flashy, but dignified enough that if her father were sitting there, he wouldn't feel ashamed. The guest list was trimmed to the bare minimum. No co-workers, just close friends and a few of Evan's loved ones. No distant Lombardy relatives. Clara didn't want the judgmental stares, the loaded questions like, "Where's her father?" or "This one turned out really different from Bella, didn't she?" Her mother came to one dress fitting, bringing a box of cannoli and a gaze that quietly said more than words ever could. When Clara told her that her father had offered to walk her down the aisle, she smiled softly but said nothing. A moment later, she finally spoke. "Don't expect too much, Clara. Sometimes people make promises because they don't know how to say no." Clara stayed quiet. The words didn't hurt right away, but they lingered in her mind for days. Like a warning, like her mother already knew what was coming. And then, it came. 5 days before the wedding, on a Monday morning, Clara was double-checking the number of rented chairs when her phone buzzed. Her father's name lit up the screen. She got up from the kitchen table, stepped into the hallway, and opened the message. Just one line: "I won't be able to attend, hope you understand." No reason, no reschedule, no apology, like someone canceling a late meeting, unimportant, no regret. Clara stared at the screen for a long time. Her hands started shaking, but not from anger, from something far more hauntingly familiar: being left behind. Again, she called back. It rang 3 times, then went to voicemail. She called again and again. Finally, she called her mother. She picked up on the 4th ring. Her voice was soft, like she was standing inside a church. "Clara? What's going on, Mom? Your father didn't tell you?" "He sent one line. I called. He didn't answer." "There's a reason. But I can't say." "Please don't be angry. Don't be angry, Clara." That sentence caught in Clara's throat. "I don't need you to defend him. I need to know what's happening." Her mother went quiet for a few seconds, then only repeated, "This isn't simple." Clara sank into a chair. Every image of the wedding dress, the music, the hall suddenly blurred, like she was planning a wedding for someone else, and she was just the guest standing outside the gate. She tried to steady her emotions and started thinking through other options. Someone to walk her down the aisle. Evan suggested her aunt, someone Clara had been close to as a child. Clara said no, not because she didn't love her aunt, but because she didn't want a substitute. Her father's absence wasn't something that could be filled. It had to be faced, not covered up. That day, Clara did nothing else. She turned off her phone, closed the curtains, and lay still on the sofa, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling like she was unthreading every crack inside her heart. By evening, Bella called. Her voice was calm, steady, like always. "Are you okay? When did you know he wasn't coming?" Bella paused for a few seconds, then said, "I don't know everything, but I think Dad has his reasons. Don't overthink it. Everything will work out." "Work out?" Clara scoffed. "You don't need to comfort me. Just tell the truth." "Clara, you know, something's being hidden. And it involves you. doesn't it?" Bella didn't deny it, didn't confirm it either. She just sighed and said, "I just want you to have a peaceful wedding. You deserve that. Don't let this take over." Clara hung up after that. She didn't want to hear another word, not right now. When night fell, she stepped out onto the balcony, staring down at the streetlights below like they were fake stars. One thing was clear. Her father didn't just can't make it. He chose not to come. And someone was hiding the reason why. All of them, her mother, Bella, were covering the same truth. The next morning, Clara got a text with a photo from an old friend named Rachel, someone who used to be part of the same church community, now living in another state. Rachel wasn't the type to meddle, definitely not the type to send random pictures. But this one made Clara stop breathing. In the photo was her father, Pastor Anthony Lombardi, standing in the red brick courtyard behind the church, a place usually reserved for clergy or church staff. The sky was gray, the iron cross faint in the background. He was shaking hands with a woman. Neither of them looked at the camera. The moment looked like it had been taken from far away, almost like it was caught in secret. Clara zoomed in, her heart pounding harder with each beat. The woman had wavy brown hair, wore a cream linen coat. But what froze Clara in place was the necklace around her neck. A teardrop-shaped pearl pendant with a silver rim, vintage design, identical to the one Bella used to wear as a teenager. Not just similar, the same. Clara dug through her memory, recalling every holiday, every Sunday, every time Bella had that necklace on. No one else had ever worn it, ever. Clara texted back, "When was this photo taken?" Rachel replied, "Sunday. I stopped by the old church to visit Father James. Saw it by chance. Didn't want to get involved, but something felt off." Clara set the phone down on the kitchen counter. Her mother's vague words, Bella's dodging tone, that one-line message from her father. It all felt like it was circling a blind spot in her memory. A place she used to believe was just neglect, not intentional. That night, Clara went to her mother's house. No warning. Her mother opened the door, surprised, but still invited her in. The house was quiet. The scent of candle wax and old biscotti still lingered like it always did. Clara didn't dance around it. "Who is this woman in the picture?" she asked, placing her phone on the dining table, the image enlarged to full screen. Her mother looked, said nothing for 10 seconds. Her eyes drifted away from the screen, down into her palms. When she looked back up, there was no more avoidance in her gaze. "Diane?" Just one word. Clara instantly felt the air in the room turn cold. "Say that again?" "Diane? Her name is Diane." "Who is she?" It's not something you need to worry about, Clara." Clara let out a dry laugh. "And what exactly is something I should worry about, Mom? Dad ditching me on my wedding day? Or the fact that everyone in this family seems to know someone named Diane? Except me?" Her mother didn't answer. She just clenched her hands tightly on the table. Clara didn't push further. She left the house in under 10 minutes. On the drive home, her mind felt like it was filled with 100 files popping open all at once. Diane, the necklace identical to Bella's, a name that had never been spoken. She went back to her apartment and pulled out every old document she could find. 2 years ago, Clara had helped her mother organize the filing cabinet, the one that held everything from birth certificates and school applications to the wedding registry. She remembered seeing copies of both hers and Bella's birth certificates. After over an hour of digging, Clara found what she was looking for: Bella's birth certificate. Father's name, Anthony Vincent Lombardi. Mother's name, left blank. No way. No way that was a mistake. Clara sat there, frozen. Bella's birth date was December 25th, just like their father always said. But that blank space under mother, it was like a gaping hole, daring every suspicion to step inside. 3 days later, Clara met Bella for dinner at a small Italian restaurant near their old neighborhood. No one else from the family came, just the two of them, and a steaming bowl of linguine in front of each. Clara didn't wait for dessert. "What do you know about Diane?" Bella froze, her fork suspended midair. She swallowed a bite of pasta she hadn't chewed well, then set her fork down gently. "Come again?" "You heard me. I'm done talking in circles. Who is Diane?" Bella stayed silent, then took a sip of water. Her face didn't look surprised, more like someone being called out of hiding. "I've known since I was 16. The words hit Clara like a cold blade straight to the chest. "Mom told you?" No, Dad. One time, I overheard him on the phone. After that, he told me, but he made me swear not to tell anyone. And you kept that promise for 20 years? What about me? I didn't deserve to know? Bella lowered her head. I'm sorry. I always thought it was something better left buried. Clara went still. Her hand gripped the edge of the tablecloth, eyes staring out the window like she was searching for a witness to prove this moment was real. They all knew. Every one of them. Except her. The one always kept on the outside. The one who had to guess at her father's moods. The one who always asked why she was never enough. Now she knew why, and that truth hurt more than any rejection ever could. 3 days after the dinner with Bella, Clara booked a flight to Rhode Island. She didn't tell her mother. She didn't tell Evan. She just packed a small bag, her laptop, and a printed copy of the photo, the one of her father with the woman wearing the pearl necklace. The information Clara found in old library records revealed that Diane had once been a prominent member of the St. Anthony Church Choir in the early 1990s. The only mention of her was in a Christmas bulletin from 1990, where Diane was introduced as the leading soprano voice of the community. That was it. After that, nothing. It was like she had disappeared. Clara traced the name of someone who had once performed in the same choir and found an address on the outskirts of Providence, an old wooden house quietly nestled under a line of maple trees. The woman who answered the door looked to be in her late 50s, prematurely gray, tall, with a wary gaze. Clara didn't waste time. She held up the photo. Do you know this woman? I need to know about her. Her name is Diane. The woman stared at the picture. There was a flicker of recognition, a small jolt, then a quiet nod. My name is Marlene. We used to be friends, and you are? Clara Lombardi. Anthony Lombardi is your father? Yes. Marlene looked at Clara for a long moment. Her eyes weren't exactly pitying, nor cold. It was the look of someone reading a story whose ending they already knew. They sat in the old kitchen, beside a pot of black tea and a few slices of coconut butter cake. Marlene spoke slowly, as if every word might crack something open. Diane was everything the church wanted. Talented, beautiful, devout. But she and your father? They were in love. They couldn't hide it. It just wasn't something people were ready to accept back then. You mean they were public about it? No, but everyone suspected. When Diane got pregnant, everything fell apart. The people in the church said she was a disgrace. A single woman carrying a child, they said it was an insult to doctrine. And Anthony. What did he do? He stayed silent. Marlene poured more tea. Her voice dropped lower. Diane waited for him to speak up, to say something. But he said nothing. He didn't defend her, didn't acknowledge it, didn't protect her. He just stayed silent. And she left. Yes, Diane left right after that. No goodbyes. No one knew who the father was. She never asked for anything. She just left Bella and disappeared. Clara sat frozen. My father raised Bella after that? He did. No one questioned it. No one dared, because he was a man of God and because everyone wanted to keep the church's image spotless. Clara asked, did he ever try to find Diane? Marlene shook her head. No. A year later, he married your mother. Everything got buried. Diane never showed up again. But I know, he never forgot. He just chose to bury it beneath vestments and prayers. Clara stared at the teacup in front of her. And me? Why couldn't he love me? Marlene looked up. Her eyes softened. Because you reminded him. You reminded him he once abandoned a woman carrying his child. You are living proof of a life he tried to cover with God. Every time he looked at you, he saw guilt. He saw Diane. He saw cowardice. But Bella, the little girl he left behind with her mother, became the only thing he thought he could fix. He loved Bella as a way to make amends, and he punished you as a way to punish himself. Clara sat still. Her heart wasn't racing. It just felt like her chest was emptying out, layer by layer, like a building collapsing in silence. No explosion, just bricks, crumbling quietly. Marlene didn't ask anything else. She simply slid a napkin closer to Clara, then stood up to pour more tea. On the flight back to New Jersey, Clara stared out the window the entire way. The gray clouds drifted slowly, like memories. Every report card ceremony he never showed up to, every cold remark that sounded like a sermon, every look that avoided her like she didn't belong. She understood now. She had never done anything wrong. But she had also never been forgiven. Not because of her own sins, but because someone else's had never been cleansed. She was the shadow Anthony Lombardi couldn't look at, the name he couldn't say gently, the mirror reflecting the woman he left in the dark. And instead of facing that, he chose to love the child who reminded him of nothing, Bella, and abandon the one who reminded him of everything, Clara. Guilt doesn't die, it just changes shape. And sometimes it grows up into a child who knows how to hold a pencil and walk herself out of the fake light adults built around her. Clara didn't go home right after the plane landed. She sat in her rental car for nearly an hour, parked aimlessly in the Newark airport lot, hands resting on the wheel like she was waiting for a signal from somewhere outside herself. But no one came. No one needed to tell her what to do next. The following afternoon, she went to her father's house. The house hadn't changed. Brown roof tiles, moss-speckled blue stone steps. Clara stood at the door for a long time before knocking. She'd thought about texting first, but decided against it. Face-to-face reckonings don't need appointments. They need resolve. Her father opened the door. He wore a turtleneck sweater, still holding a slim book in one hand. When he saw Clara, he paused, but didn't look surprised. "Come in." No hug, no greeting, no warm glance that said, "I'm glad you're here." Just the polite offer of a man used to leaving the door halfway open. The living room was cold, the windows shut. Yellow lamplight spilled onto the crucifix on the wall, like a quiet reminder. Some things in this house are meant to be out of reach. Clara sat down in the chair across from him. He sat opposite, hands resting on his knees. He didn't ask why she came, he just waited. "I'm not here to beg," Clara began, "and I'm not here to hear your reasons. I came to say what needs to be said." He gave a slight nod. Still silent. "I know about Diane. I know who she was. I know where Bella came from. And I know why you could never look at me the way you look at her." His eyes shifted slightly, like they wanted to react, but then settled back, looking at Clara without really seeing her. "I thought it was me. For 30 years. I thought I wasn't good enough, not gentle enough, not obedient enough, not the kind of daughter you wanted. But now I know, it wasn't because I wasn't enough. It's because I reminded you of the one person you wanted to forget." "Clara," he started, but she raised her hand, cutting him off. "No, let me finish. You loved Bella as a way to make it right. You put her at the center of everything, gave her every ceremony, called her a miracle. And me? Every time I succeeded, you called it duty. Every time I struggled, you called it a test. You didn't need to ignore me. You just needed to stop acting like I didn't exist." The room went still. No hum of a fan, no birds outside the window, just the heavy breath of a man who had just been stripped of the thickest robe of righteousness he'd ever worn. Her father said nothing. 5 full minutes of silence passed. His gaze drifted to the floor, to the scratches in the oak, like a map of all the times he walked by without turning his head. Finally, he spoke. His voice rough, not loud, not cracking. Just the sound of a man who had preached thousands of sermons but was telling the truth for the first time. "I didn't have the courage, and you paid the price for that. That was all." No apology, no plea for forgiveness, no blaming circumstance, no defense that he tried his best, just acknowledgement. And strangely, that alone made Clara feel lighter. She stood up. No anger, no shouting, no throwing chairs or smashing picture frames like in some dramatic family showdown. She just stood and let go of something invisible that had clung to her shoulders for 30 years. When she walked toward the door, her father didn't stop her. He stayed seated, hands clasped, head slightly bowed. Clara turned to look at him one last time. "I don't hate you, and I don't forgive you. Not today. Not the kind of forgiveness that pretends nothing ever happened. But I'm not going to let this weigh on my life anymore. I've lived long enough to understand. You can only wait for someone to open their heart until you realize some doors were never built to open." No one said anything else. Clara stepped outside. The sky was still light. Thin gray, no sun, but bright enough to see the path clearly. She walked down the stone steps without looking back. When she got home, Clara opened the wedding box. She pulled out the invitation, the white veil, and the card where the name of the person walking her down the aisle was still blank. She tore it up. There would be no one. Not because she was alone, but because she had already gone farther than anyone could ever lead her. If she had walked through every crossroads in her life by herself, Then by now, she didn't need anyone standing beside her to validate that strength. She picked up a pen and wrote one single line on a new card. Bride walks herself down the aisle. No father, no substitute, no stand-in, no +1. Just a woman who knew exactly how far she had come to stand here. And no one could take that away from her. Morning light filtered through the frosted church windows, soft and cold like a curtain not yet drawn on a play already waiting to begin. Clara stood alone behind the heavy wooden doors, her wedding dress fitting her slender frame just right, the white veil trailing to the floor. Her hands held a bouquet of daffodils, simple, unassuming, but resilient. No one stood beside her. No whispered, "Are you ready?" Only the opening notes of canon in D drifting from inside, slow, steady, each one like a heartbeat echoing in her chest. A hand touched her shoulder. "Bella, I'll walk you in," she said. Clara turned to her. Bella wore a soft blue dress, her hair pinned neatly, her eyes sincere. But Clara just smiled gently. "Thank you," she said, "but I need to do this myself." Bella looked at her for a second, then nodded. No questions, no protests. She stepped back, gently touched the veil trailing behind Clara, a quiet blessing without words. The music swelled. Clara took a breath, then stepped forward down the aisle between the rows of pews. Every eye turned to her, not for how she looked, but for how she walked, upright, steady, without hesitation. Each step carried an untold story. Each movement, a silent declaration. I came here on my own. I chose myself. At the end of the aisle, Evan stood waiting. Charcoal gray suit, ivory tie, eyes rimmed red, impossible to hide. When their eyes met, he pressed his lips together, then exhaled. Like he'd just found something he thought he'd lost. Clara reached him and stopped. No one placed her hand into his. She did it herself. And Evan held on, tight, without a single word. There was no space for the ritual, who gives this bride away? No one needed to give her away, because she was never being given. She had already chosen. The ceremony was warm, intimate. The officiant was an old friend of Evan's family, deep-voiced, soft-spoken, free of theatrical pauses. The vows were read slowly, without flourish. Clara's were short, her eyes steady. "I choose you, not because I need someone to change my life, but because you've always respected who I already am." The room went still. No one mentioned her father. The front left chair, the one marked reserved, stayed empty. No one asked why. No one touched it, as if everyone silently understood. Some spaces are not meant to be filled. After the ceremony, while guests mingled over light refreshments in the side hall, her mother came over. She didn't say a word. She just held Clara. For a long time. No explanations, no attempts to fix anything, no effort to tidy up what couldn't be. Just an embrace between two women who were too tired of holding everything up and had finally realized they only had each other to lean on. Clara didn't cry. She wasn't stone-faced either. She was just still, as if she'd finally found peace within the echo of her own family's silence. As night fell, the guests slowly trickled out. Evan was across the room, chatting with his old college friends. Clara walked toward the mirror, the one she'd used to change before heading to the car for the hotel. She removed each pin from her hair, took out the flowers. The white dress had a few wrinkles near the hem, the bouquet had wilted slightly, her lipstick faded just enough. But she had never seen herself more clearly in the mirror. No one standing behind her. No hand waiting to reach for hers. No representative needed to confirm her worth. "I don't need a witness," she whispered to her reflection. "I just need someone to walk beside me." Evan was there, ready. Her mother, though never the strong one, hadn't walked away. Bella, with all her past silence, had stepped back so Clara could step forward. And Clara had chosen to stand, rather than cling to the image of a father who had never truly been hers to hold. She didn't send a letter. She didn't make a call. She didn't post anything online. She didn't expose the truth. Because truth, if it has to be announced to be believed, hasn't earned its weight. Clara chose silence, not to protect anyone, but because she no longer needed to shout to prove she had lived honestly. As she left the church, Clara turned to look back one last time. The warm light from inside spilled through the stained glass, casting her shadow onto the stone steps. Just one shadow. Not long, not crooked, perfectly placed. The shadow of someone who had walked alone and hadn't fallen. Someone once asked her, "If your father apologized, would you forgive him?" She didn't know. Maybe, Maybe not. But now that question no longer carried the weight it once did. Because the better question was, it's not about who walks beside you. It's about who made you walk alone. And whether you still need them at all. Not everyone who brings us into the world is capable of showing up in it. And not every absence is a loss. Some gaps in life can't be filled, but because of them, we learn to stand tall. We learn to choose what's good for us without waiting for permission from those who never offered it. Clara didn't win, she just stopped losing. And sometimes, that's the only victory a child from a broken family can give herself. Because real love doesn't come from titles. It comes from the choice, made over and over again, not to abandon. And what about you? Have you ever had to walk alone in a moment where someone should have been there, but wasn't?